Today we are talking to Tom McCarthy, the author of Breakthrough Code from California, USA. Tom is a father of two, husband of 30 years, CEO or board member of 8 companies, early stage investor in over 40 companies, and worldwide philanthropist. Hello, Tom.
Yeah, good to see you, Nicoletta. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's lovely to be here with you. So, shall we start with what is happiness to you?
Yeah, I thought you might ask that, and I was thinking about that. And that is a tough question, right? Because we want happiness, but we don't always know how to define it. And so for me, I had to think about that this morning. I was really spending some time on that. And I think a couple things. First of all, to me, happiness is a choice. So I was watching my wife. I think she was doing some emails the other day, and she had this smile on her face while she's doing emails. And I'm thinking, why is she smiling doing an email, right? Because I do my emails and I focus in, and I'm like, she's choosing to be happy doing it. And I think the quality of her email is going to be better because she's making that choice. The other thing I think, so happiness is a choice. Like you can have everything in the world and still be unhappy. So at some level, it's a choice. I think it's easier to make that choice when we are on the path of fulfilling our life purpose. I used to think that, because when I grew up, my father passed away when I was young. We didn't have much money. We struggled. And I used to think when I have enough money, I'll be happy. And then, I made lots and lots of money, and it's cool, it's fun, but and when you have a big win, you get a tinge of happiness, but it's not lasting. Happiness that lasts is the happiness that I think you feel when you know that you are on the path to fulfilling the purpose that you were born to come down on this planet to do.
Wow, that's amazing. I love it. I do believe that happiness is a choice that we have. And I feel that choice is actually our real power in life.
Yeah.
It's the choice to embrace this very moment and do your best with it. And the alternative is to, forget that you have the choice and just live an accidental life. Give yourself up to this nonsense that goes on in the mind, in the program mind all the time.
Yeah.
So
I had a situation several years ago where I was struggling with a health issue. I had chronic fatigue. And one of my friends, who is he's a phenomenal human being, like he's a brilliant guy, went to Stanford, Harvard, but he's also he's an attorney, like one of the top attorneys in the US, but he's also an energy healer. And so he was helping me with some different things around energy healing. And one of the things he would always kind of end with, or in his emails to me, he would say, "Life is a blessing." And at the time, I'm like, I don't know if I'm feeling the blessing right now. But I just started to adopt that philosophy that life is a blessing. The challenges are a blessing, the fun times are a blessing, and that's really helped me make a choice to be happier on a more consistent basis when I just really feel like life is a blessing. The fact that we get to do what we're doing and be in the bodies that we're in and experience the things that we get to experience, tough things and, more pleasant things. That is a total blessing.
well, it is. Only that sometimes you forget that this is the case. So, Tom, you talk a little bit about a difficult start in life, some problems in your childhood, and then we see you very successful according to the standards of this world, obviously having achieved a lot in all aspects of your life. Let's go a little bit back and talk a little bit about suffering. So if it's not happiness, then it's pain. What is the source of our suffering, would you say?
I think part of it is just comparing yourself to others. Like if someone looks at me and they go, "Wow, he's accomplished a lot," and he has this perfect life, and no, I have lots of challenges every single day, right? We all do. It's not, and yes, I've accomplished things, but I'm an older person. I've had more time than other people, or I've been exposed maybe to teachings that other people haven't been exposed to, but I'm nothing special. I don't think anyone is truly better than any other human being. They may accomplish more in certain areas, but also people that may look and go, oh, he's got, X amount of money, I want that. They have things that I want, right? That maybe I haven't accomplished. So we all have our own paths, our own journeys. And I think we suffer when we compare ourselves. I know that's the cause of my suffering, is when I look at, or when I have in the past looked at someone else and felt like a little bit of jealousy, or, I want what they have. And it's all a sham, right? We're all different. We're not supposed to have what someone else has exactly. Like, that's their path. And their challenges are going to be different from ours. My wife was just telling me, she was watching TV this morning, that you may not know him, but there's a guy, Tom Brady, who's a very famous football player here in the US, and he's married to a supermodel, Gisele Bundchen. And they have, these wonderful kids. They have this amazing lifestyle. They're the top of the best in what they do. And supposedly they're getting, divorced, right? So everyone has their own challenges. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. I think it is the source of suffering. Just know you're on your journey. If anything, look at other people that have accomplished things and just go, okay, if they did it, I know I can do it too, right? But don't compare yourself. Don't feel less than. Just success leaves clues. See what they've done. If it really is something you want and it's connected with your purpose, then go for it. And maybe use some of the strategies they've used, but don't feel bad that you don't have what someone else has, or you're not in the same situation that someone else is in, because they're struggling. Like I just said, Tom Brady, Gisele Bundchen, they have a lot of things, but I guarantee you there's a lot of heartbreak right now. There's a lot of challenge. There's sadness in that relationship. So, don't ever compare yourself to other people, is what I would say.
That sounds so great. I feel that in a way you describe admiring others, looking around, feeling inspired by what others accomplish, but then follow your own path and and feel happy with what you have, and just, settle with that. Not necessarily settle in the wrong way, where you don't want more and you don't want to grow, you don't want to develop, but you appreciate what you have right now, and you know that one day you will have a bit more. And that more is not necessarily of a material nature. It might be relationships, it might be connection, it might be satisfaction, and so on.
Listen, we need to grow as human beings. When we're not growing, we're not going to be happy. So growth is a very good thing, and having objectives or results that you want to accomplish that lead you on that path to growth, that's really, really important. But also being happy with who you are right now, and not feeling like when I get there, I'll be happy. No, be happy have gratitude, be happy with who you are, be happy with the things that surround you. That's super important. And it also allows you to grow even more because when you have gratitude, you're grateful for receiving, you're grateful for what you have, which then I believe the universe sends you more. So it also supercharges your growth.
Oh, so lovely. Yeah, that resonates in me. So in the area of growth now, maybe you can share a little bit. How did you manage to grow from where you started to, I don't know, to working on the Wall Street, and then coaching top executives, Olympic athletes, successful entrepreneurs, and building this amazing career and wonderful life?
Yeah, I think I've been very, very lucky. So even though I grew up, my father was killed in Vietnam when I was 3, so I did not grow up with a
I'm
father.
sorry to hear that.
My mother never remarried. I had 2 younger brothers that were, I was 3. I had a 2-year-old brother when my father passed away. My brother was 2, and then we had a little baby in the family that was 6 months old. So I think, I've been very, very blessed though and part of it was just luck, have people around me that were good mentors and that helped me along the way. And I think that's very, very important. I feel I feel like a good portion of the world is missing that, right? Because they grow up in environments where all they see is people that are struggling and suffering. Part of the reason I wrote my book, The Breakthrough Code, was I wanted people to maybe through a book, have a way to be mentored, to be coached, to see something bigger for themselves. But I saw even though we've struggled, we didn't have money financially, there's a lot of sadness and grief. I saw bigger things. Like I was around people that were more successful than me, that had accomplished things, and so I had some people that I could look at that I could aspire to be more like them. Not comparing myself, but because they were older than me, right? These were grown-ups when I was a younger person. But I had people around, even people in my family. My grandfather was someone that I really looked up to. So I think that was really the saving grace. And then also books, like I would read books. Nowadays we can get on YouTube or get on Instagram or any of these places and get content, the right content, right? The content that'll help you grow, not just to keep your mind busy, which a lot of people do that, like seeking out the right content. So I was reading books by, you may not remember these people, but like Dennis Waitley, right? Seeds of Greatness when I was in my teens. I was reading Wayne Dyer's work, when I was in my teens. I was reading books like Illusions, right? Which is a really fascinating parable story by Richard Bach when I was in my teens. I was really challenging myself. And the thing is, when you do have adversity when you're young, it's to me, it's not what you want, but it's a little bit of an advantage because you don't just get stuck in the routine. Your life gets shaken up, right? It's not black and white anymore. You have to look around and go, all right, how can I figure this thing out versus just going through, childhood where everything's great. Now, I would have loved to have a happier, easier childhood, but I don't think I'd be me if I did. So, I would be hopefully somebody, a good person and successful, but I was driven by getting my life shaken up, like trying to figure life out. And so I was much more attentive to learning and finding mentors and books and things like that than I would have been if life had been perfect.
So amazing. We talk about trauma, especially childhood trauma, and how it impacts our development. But then we also know that it is somehow a vehicle towards growth. The post-traumatic growth is real. I experienced it, and you just described in your own words some parts of your inner experience. I'd like to stay here for just a minute and maybe look into how trauma can block our happiness. Have you felt it in a way, the absence of the father and being challenged so early in life has maybe left some wounds, has blocked you in any way on an emotional development or any other level, really?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But what trauma really is people think trauma is an event. Well, an event has already happened, right? So that event doesn't keep happening unless we keep bringing it up. And sometimes that is what happens because it's trapped energy. So the energy around that event, it gets basically trapped in our subconscious, right? Our superconscious. And then we're wondering, like, why am I struggling? Why am I not happy? But the good thing is everything's energy, right? Everything's energy, and trapped energy can be released. So one of the things that I've done in the past couple of years is I started the Global Energy Healing Summit. And I have a ton of people that come on, MDs, all sorts of really, really cool people, energy healers. And a lot of what they do is help people release trapped energy, release trauma. And trauma is responsible for unhappiness. It's also responsible for a lot of stress and even chronic illnesses. So once you release that trapped energy, things change within you. And so I do a lot of work on releasing trapped energy every day. I think not only are we holding on to traumas that we've experienced, but I think we hold on to traumas that our parents have experienced, that our ancestors have experienced. So it's not only the stuff you've gone through, like you were around people that had traumas too. And I believe energetically we take them on, but also it's probably in the DNA and things like that too. So a big part of life, I believe, should be, and even people, I haven't really had trauma. Everyone's had trauma, right? Some have had, bigger things than others, but part of my day and part of what I wrote about in the book is getting rid of your old baggage, like releasing that trapped energy so that you can then put in the thoughts, the emotions that will make you happier. But when your energy, when you've got this chunk of trapped energy, and then you're trying to layer on good stuff on top of it, it's on a bad foundation. Like you got to clear that out. And it's a lifelong process, right? Because we always have little things we don't like that are happening. And if we're aware of it, we don't have to trap it. We can feel it. We can let it go in the moment. But we tend to trap things like that and then deal with them later. So when we do that, it's important to notice when you're not feeling good, like what's going on, and then go inside. And there's lots of different tools. I think I did like 7 or 8 of them on Instagram, where I had little 1-minute videos, ways to get rid of trapped energy.
It's unbelievable. So we are so far away. You are in the United States. I'm in Europe, and I so much love the sound of your work. I absolutely love it. I attended the Global Energy Summit this year, and it was a fantastic event. Thank you so much for that. Carry on doing it. I've just discovered it this year, so I can't wait for the next year to unfold. So now we're talking about healing our traumas. Why do you think people trap this negative energy and don't want to let it go? What's been your learning so far in your work?
I think it's so shocking that, we get taken aback and then we don't want to feel we don't want to feel whatever it was, the grief, the sadness, we just want to get through it. And part of life is really feeling, letting that feeling pass through. One of the people we had on, I think it was our first summit, was a gentleman that was a social worker. And he was over in parts of the Middle East that had a lot of trauma. I think he said like Lebanon, and where there would be like a bombing, and people would be there. And he what he noticed was that when something like that happened, people would tense up and almost like try to freeze the moment and hold on to it. That's how a lot of trauma gets trapped. But then he would notice some people would, right after that, they would begin, particularly younger people, would begin like shaking, like trembling. And then they would, after trembling for a couple minutes, they would be able to walk away and be fine, versus other people that just froze and tightened up and didn't release it. Trembling is actually a good mechanism to release trapped energy. And so he actually came up with a mechanism showing people how to create that trembling mechanism in yourself proactively, where it starts freeing up trapped energy in your body. So when you look at like, and there's videos I've seen where an animal has a traumatic event happen, like something shocking. They freeze up, but then they tremble for a little while. And then they move off, like a cat. A cat that gets scared will tremble and then move off. We don't do that. Like, we trap it, we hold on to it, we carry it around for 30, 40, 50 years. We could be letting go of this stuff. And that's part of the key to having a happier, more successful life.
Because we keep it probably stuck in the mind as well. We try in a way to cover it, to keep busy and distracted and not engage with it, not process it properly. But at the same time, it's in our disadvantage because it remains unresolved.
Yeah.
So
and then
now
we continue to talk about it. about that event. We continue to think about that event, and it's in the past. It doesn't exist anymore. And so part of it too, though, it's not like you have to forget the event ever happened. My father was killed in Vietnam, right? It used to be a super sad thing for me to think about. But I have a different perspective on it now, right? Not everyone's going to live the same amount of years. Certain people are going to, have shorter lives. Certain people have longer lives. My father, he passed away at 30 years old, right? But my father, I believe, fulfilled his purpose. He brought 3 young boys into the world with my mother, and we really looked up to my dad, even though he wasn't around. He was this hero. He was this wonderful person that everybody loves. So he set an example, and I was very, very, very fortunate to have him as my father.
Wow.
So I have a different way of looking at it now than I looked at it when I was just sad and life's not fair. You change your story, and when you change your story, you change your life. You change the way you look at things.
It's about your self-narrative, really, isn't it? And you're right. It's changing as you grow through life. It's so beautiful how you choose to talk about your father, looking at the positive, looking at his impact in the world, how he left behind these 3 wonderful human beings. That's part of his purpose, not just to fight and and lose his life on the battlefield, but it goes further than that. And this is the choice that you mentioned in the opening. You're choosing to look at the good side as well, not just at the loss of his physical presence.
Right.
And then the presence of this person, whether we remember them or not, is still here. Because in a way, what you're doing, you're choosing to operate from this very present moment and not go back in the past into what's been probably most traumatic when you were young and you had to face the thought of not having a dad when probably other boys around had them and so on. So it's the choice. Tom, it's also amazing how you describe your story. I'd love to know how you moved from working on the mindset as a coach to spirituality, and now talking about the healing power of the energy around us and inside of us. What happened? How did you make that kind of shift?
I think it's been a lot. I mean, it's been a long time that I've kind of felt that way. But when I think one thing that was really affirming to me was I was around my mother when she passed away. I was there when she passed away. And, we get so addicted to thinking that, we are this physical presence. You use that word, physical presence. And we're way more than the physical presence, right? When my mother passed away, I remember looking at her body and just knowing that's not my mom, right? My mother is more than this body that doesn't have life in it anymore. And I could feel her presence. And then my father-in-law passed away in our home in hospice, and the same feeling, right? So we are so much more than this physical presence. This physical presence is just a fun vehicle that we get to experience life on earth in, but we're way more than that. And remembering that is really, really important. I have to remind myself, because sometimes I get defined by, my body, right? Or, the pain I'm feeling in my body, or even the joy I'm feeling in my body. So it's a fun little vehicle, but we are way more than that. And when you really understand that you're not just this physical body, then life is unlimited, right? Because the physical body has constraints. There's only so many things you can do. There's only so many places you can be. But the reality is you can be anywhere. Like in your mind, in your superconscious mind, I can be anywhere. And I can be accomplishing things in my mind that everything's created twice, first in your mind, then in the outside world. And so I can be accomplishing things in my mind that will be building up to make it real in the outside touch and feel world. But to me, that's super exciting, because if I just thought of myself as a physical being, life would be tough. I would have lots more limits than what I currently feel like I have. My book was called, the subtitle is How to Live a Life Without Limits. And I do think we are unlimited. We're only limited by the way we think and by, the actions that we take, and the way we think actually even determines the actions that we take. So life is really, really cool. It's super exciting. Doesn't matter where you are right now. You can be in a completely different place down the road if you choose to, but it starts inside of you, and it's not defined by your body. It's not defined by how much money you have in the bank, how you look, the house you live in. None of that defines you. You are way more than any of that.
You make such a beautiful distinction between the physical body and then the mental space, and then you add spirituality. You talk about the spirit and the soul, this beautiful energy surrounding us, that is the essence of life, apparently, as we hear now. Even the quantum physicists agree with this. The scientists are starting to acknowledge that, which is so beautiful. So it's also amazing. So now, why do you think people identify themselves with the physicality, with just the needs of this physical body, or many of them in our modern world with the mind, with the program mind? Because I think part of the suffering is coming from there, from this limited identity. Whilst we are, as you mentioned, boundless. I mean, we want to expand all the time. We don't want limits. But at the same time, we kind of, remain stuck within these limits of our current awareness and limited physicality. So maybe you can expand a little bit on that.
Yeah, it takes a leap of faith to think beyond the physical body, that you're more than the physical body. Now, even people that I think are very religious and they go to church, and I'm very spiritual. I don't necessarily go to church, but and they say all the prayers and they do all the right things. I think it's still even hard for them to get beyond that they're more than their physical body, because life is an illusion. What we think we're seeing things, and the way I see it is the way it is, but everything you see is just your own illusion. Someone else will look at it and they could see something completely different or have a very different opinion of it. So here in the US, we have, politics have been crazy the past few years, and people are all looking pretty much at the same thing, but they have very different opinions of what's right, what's wrong, what's real, what's not real. And so we are actively creating illusions as we go through our lives. And part of the illusion is that we are a physical body. And the body's actually responding to your thoughts. So a lot of chronic pain is not because there's some physical reason for it. Dr. John Sarno, who wrote several books about pain, he was an MD that passed away a few years ago in his 90s, but he would take the toughest back pain cases where people had tried surgery and drugs and everything else, and they just couldn't get rid of pain. And he would teach them that your pain is really coming from trapped emotions. And you're angry inside, but you've never expressed it. You never let it go. You just held on to it. And rather than dealing with it mentally, your mind is going to create pain in your body to distract you. So the body becomes the thing that we think we are. And also, most people can't believe in anything they can't touch or feel. And so what I'm telling people is that everything's created twice. First in your mind. You can't touch it in your mind, but it has to be created in your mind to then be something later on that you can touch and feel. And that's that's too big of a leap of faith, unfortunately, for most people. But the people that are shifting reality in the world, the people doing great things, they know that. They understand that. They're using that. So my goal is to help more people understand it, which is why I wrote my book, which is all about shifting reality, so that they can thrive, they can be happier, they can be more fulfilled, they can help more people on their journey in this lifetime that we're in.
Ah, so great. I love your holistic perspective, and I feel that although many of the doctors in the conventional medicine space these days are still reluctant to, acknowledge alternative treatments, there is a sense of openness, as I noticed that I'm seeing in the UK in particular, towards non-conventional medicine, especially energy healing and mindfulness, anything that comes from the East. So it's somehow a very timid attempt to open the doors towards what's coming from the ancient, traditions and the learnings and the teachings that have been always there, but we have not acknowledged them because the scientific revolution has played with our brains for 300 years or more. So tell us about your book now. How is this helping people? What is it about?
Well, the book's called The Breakthrough Code, and it's my observations over, well, I wrote it a couple of years ago, but I'm 61 years old now, so I've seen a lot. Like I've been on this planet. I've been around, I've 61 revolutions, I guess, right? So it's interesting, to look at people who are really successful and try and figure out, like, what have they done, and is there a recipe that they've used that other people can use? And I believe I've seen that, I've figured that out, and other people have figured it out too. So I'm not the only one. But to me, it's really three things. Like, people that are doing amazing things, they're not doing amazing things in, 58 different areas of life. They have to pick and choose a little bit, right? Because we are on planet Earth. We have, a certain amount of time, even though time's an illusion. We buy into, we have a certain amount of time in the day. There's part of the day we're sleeping, but even when you sleep, you can be creating if you program your superconscious right. And but the mind needs targets. The mind needs to know what you want it to do. The mind really is your servant. I'm talking about your superconscious mind. It's asking, what do you want me to focus on? What do you want me to do? And if you just like spread it so thin, you don't have the full power. So the first big idea I see people that are super successful practices, they focus on less and then they obsess, but the obsession is not a conscious obsession. That's actually unhealthy. It's a super conscious obsession. They program their super conscious mind, which can process 40 million bits of information per second, to really always be working for them. And then when I say focus on less, doesn't mean you only do three things, but when you're trying to make a breakthrough, you need to be laser-like, not a light bulb that's trying to light up everything, a laser that can really cut through. And so I say three big things at any point in time should be what you focus in on. Now, once you do that, once you've got focus, now you've got to upgrade your story, your internal story, the software program that your subconscious mind is running. And you'd be surprised what's really being run. Like if you're in a place that you don't like, you created that. Your mind created that. You go, well, I don't want it. Well, there's some programming down in there that is creating that unhappiness, that lack of prosperity, that struggling in relationships, that chronic illness, whatever it is. And so you've got to go down in there, and basically it's just a story that's being played over and over again. It's like a software program that keeps running. So sometimes we have to go in and take out the software, parts of the software, and then we have to reinstall new software. In our phones, we always upgrade. In our phones and computers, we're always upgrading the software because it's going to be better. But internally in ourselves, we're so addicted to being who we were yesterday. I tell people, you're under zero obligation to be the exact same person you were a minute ago. Like, if you don't like it, shift it, change it. Now that takes getting rid of some things, and then it takes installing in better programs. And then the superconscious just runs those better programs and things start happening. And you're like, wow, life is working now in that area that I focused on. And then the third thing is packing your day with effective action. And doesn't mean massive action. Like, I work a lot, I don't work as hard or as frantically as I used to when I was younger. And part of it is I probably have momentum, but also when you've got the right programming and you're super conscious, the right thing that you're supposed to do tends to show up. And then you attract people in that are going to be more helpful. So it's effective action. You've got to take action, but it's effective action. And it's almost like guided action. Once you have the right programming, you're going to find the right things to do. I don't know if you've read it, but
Not yet.
the book in a parable form. So it's a story. So it's a fun book for people to read because they're going through this story with this character that's learning the code, and so it's a fun way. We've gotten amazing reviews on Amazon, almost all 5-star. We have some 4s, a couple 3s, but
not everyone gets it. It's impossible.
But the vast majority are 5-star reviews, and it's been a lot of fun. It's really a work of love for me. It took me like 3 years to write, so I'm not the fastest writer, but I really wanted to help people, and so I'm happy that people are getting a lot out of it.
It sounds amazing. I mean, it's so clear. It's all about finding clarity, really, and checking in with yourself. Mm-hmm. Are you sure you want to be this, and this is all you are? Are you sure? And then, changing a little bit your life around. I mean, it's all doable, I would imagine. I can't wait to read the book. I will definitely read it.
No matter where you are in your life, where you're stuck, it's not permanent. Now, some people, it is permanent, but it's only permanent because they don't make the adjustments or they don't use the breakthrough code to get through it. But when you know how to get through things, again, using the breakthrough code for me, your life really is unlimited, right? You will have things pop up where you see limits, and you can say, hey, I don't really care that I have that limit, right? Or you can go, no, I want to break through that. And now you've got a way to do it. And it may be instant where you have a breakthrough. That's probably rare. It may take a short period of time. It may take a longer period of time, but you can make that breakthrough applying this code that I've laid out in the book.
Very empowering. And I believe it. I believe it's possible. I have my own framework in my work, obviously, which I know it works. And it's not very different to yours. But obviously you articulate your life learnings in your own way, in the way it makes sense to you. And I feel that in a way how you describe your book and what's at the core of it, it brings you onto a different level of consciousness, because I feel that you kind of change the energies around you whilst you're doing this inner work, isn't it? You're doing a little bit of energy work as well. You're not just working on your mindset.
You change the energy inside of you, change the energy around you. People that don't match that energy don't show up in your life as much, or like it's hard for me to I go out and travel quite a bit, and so I go into different places, and I see people that are complaining and struggling and unhappy, but I'm not around many people like that. I just don't have that many people like that, or I don't know if I have any people like that really in my life that are around me a lot. Like, you attract a different type of person, people that are really on the same path as you. We all vibrate at a certain level, and when you raise your vibrational level, you tend to be around people that are at the same level. And the people that aren't at your level, that we see on the news, that are struggling, they're mad, they're angry, they're wanting to fight, they just don't tend to be in your life. So it's different. I mean, there's so many different experiences on this planet, and when you raise your energy level, the low level experiences don't really, you're not around them as much. They don't really come into your experience as much.
Because in a way, the choice that you mentioned in the opening remains your privilege to choose, in a way, what kind of frequency you operate from. And that changes everything. Amazing. So now towards the end, maybe you can share with our listeners and watchers your best learnings, summed up in 1, 2, 3 very, very simple tips, maybe similar to what you're describing in your book. What can they take with them today? How can they make adversities not necessarily disappear, but how can they turn them into gifts in their own lives, into possibilities for growth and development?
Well, the first thing that I would say is that, and I, I truly believe this, the universe is always working in your favor. When my dad died, I couldn't see that then, but the universe was working in my favor. It was shaping me. It was giving me this experience that allowed me to be a leader at a younger age, that allowed me to have more empathy for other human beings, that allowed me to want to learn and grow and get out of my pain. And then once I learned that, I wanted to share with other people how to do it, right? How to have these lives. So the universe is always working in your favor. And if you embrace that, it's easy to embrace it when something good happens. Yes, the universe is working in my favor. But the next time you have a little challenge, and I read a statistic, I don't know how many years ago, but it was in one of the newspapers that said the average person in one day will have 17 adversities, right? 17 adverse experiences. Now, it could be, I can't find my car keys, right? It could be something small like that. It could be, yesterday, my accountant communicated with me that I have a huge tax bill that I have to pay, right, before October 15th, right? So I had extended my taxes and like, whoa, okay, that's a pretty big, but the universe is always working in your favor. Like even that big tax bill, which again, it's not, I mean, it's large, but it's something I can handle. It's not pleasant, but what can I learn from that? Like, how can I use that to make me even better? Like not getting maybe attached to, money as much, right? Because it's money going out, or maybe feeling good that I'm contributing to, this country and the roads and things like that. So there's all sorts of things that I could learn from those experiences. And what I do now is when things show up that used to, back in the day, like really throw me for a loop or get upset, I'm just like, all right, what can I learn from this? I'm going to milk the crap out of this, right? I'm going to see how I can use this, like really, really use it. And that's what I've taught my children. When something shows up that you don't like, use it, use the heck out of it, like use it to grow. So I believe life is always putting things in our way that will allow us to grow. They're not pleasant because we always want the easy path. But the easy path is not how you get to great places. It's just not. Like when you look at people that win lotteries, that's kind of the easy path. You buy a little ticket for $1 or £1 or whatever. Now you win, millions of pounds or millions of dollars. And then what typically happens to those people? They lose it all within a couple of years, right? Because they didn't grow into it. They weren't energetically ready for that.
Yes.
And so adversities help us grow to make us ready for this great thing that we want. So that, to me, that's one of the biggest learnings, is that the universe is always working in your favor. It's, not just when it's looking good, when it's looking tough, there's a gift there.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That sounds just fantastic. Now, towards the end, Tom, where can people find out a bit more about you? If they want to work with you, where can they find the book? Let's share your details.
The easiest place to get the book internationally is on Amazon. So that's the easiest place. If you want to find out more about the book, and you can also order the book from thebreakthroughcode.com. So there's a video of me talking about it. There's all sorts of testimonials from, big executives and, Tony Robbins, good friend of mine, Jack Canfield, people like that. And then also my website, tommccarthy.com. There's descriptions of talks that I give and different things where people can contact me too. So thebreakthroughcode.com, tommccarthy.com, and then Amazon for the book is a great place to get it. And if you do get the book, there is a code in the book. I think there's a website and a code in the book that allows you to get 4 masterclass videos that I filmed for people that got the book, and they're for free. So they can get that also.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much for all the offerings. Thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, for sharing your gifts with the world. I'm full of gratitude for this time that I spent with you, Tom. Thank you.
You've got wonderful energy, Nicoletta, and it's really wonderful being on with you. And the world is a better place because of your work too. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You're very kind. I appreciate it.